Hello there, and welcome back to War Thunder, to a tank review. And today we will have a look at a new 6.7 American heavy tank, the T30, which is a rank 4 premium tank as the second reward tank for the 2018-2019 Winter Marathon or Winter Festive Quest, whatever you want to call them. And I want to discuss if the tank is worth it, and I think a lot of people will trade this tank on the marketplace. They try to figure out how much it is worth. It's always down to your personal opinion, I guess. That plays a huge role. What I can tell you is that if you have a good battle, the tank will make a fair amount of money. It is dirty cheap to run, and it is also having the full 1.4 times 2.0 Silverline modifier, at least in tank RP. So it makes you as much money per kill than the T29, to which I will closely compare it, since they are very similar in overall statistics. Now that the outstanding factor is obviously the big 155mm T7 cannon that trades the rate of fire for, and that is kind of the problem. For what? For an HE shell? We will see later on what that actually means, and I think also the ammunition is a bit weird from the overall knowledge that I have from within War Thunder. We will come to this all later on. And I think now let's begin with the actual tank review. As usual, let's begin with the armor, and we can see that the lower glacis is a massive weak spot. Behind there is also the big ammo rack, just like with the T34 and the T29. The upper glacis can bounce some shots, but you should not really count on it. There we also have the massive machine gun port. That is also a big problem if you have APHE, because that will still one-shot the tank. The tracks will not really help, maybe against a long 88 or a stock 20-pounder shell. But yeah, that's about it. Then here above, this part is surprisingly strong. It looks like a weak spot all the time, but it is a strong point. The side armor of the tank is 76mm. Let's clear this. Where the fighting compartment is, and in the rear section we have 51, where the engine compartment is. And then also here at the bottom, the very low ground, or the floor, so to speak, is only 25mm, so even SPA can penetrate here. And yeah, then we also have the rear of the tank, 51mm. The engine deck is 38.1. The rooftop is the same. The side of the turret, which is a big target, is 158.7mm. So even slightly angled, this makes huge problems for the long 88, hell, even the 20-pounder with the APDS, not even mentioning here Panthers. So the turret is a hard nut to crack. But it is missing the additional plating that the T34 has, so this is more like the T29, 102mm. The cupola is a tough target, you should not really count on this. The front here of the turret is again 158.7mm, and we have a lot of layers now with the gun mantle frame, so it's a tough target. But the actual gun mantle is 203mm thick with a 38.1mm spalling shield behind it. But a long 88 will punch through, because this is cast homogeneous armor, and will punch through this as well at short range. I had a case, numerous cases, and there you can see there is actually a massive weak spot for SPA. So a Wirbelwind, a Kugelblitz, and an Ostwind that can penetrate you here and do a lot of damage. Then we also have here this conjunction where the deck part meets again the upper frontal glacis, and that can be overmatched as well. So I have to say, in overall, yeah, and then there are also the cheeks here on the side. Overall, the armor seems to be really soft. I don't remember the T34 or the T29 being that weak and being penned on such a regular basis. Now let's talk about the X-ray, and we can see we have overall 6 crew members, 2 in the front and overall 4 in the turret. We have a lot of ammunition in the turret. Overall, take the ammunition out, that increases your survivability. The gun breach gets hit very often, either from side shots or from simply the front, from some spalling. Overall, 20 rounds of ammunition overall are more than enough. And then we obviously have this big ammo rack right at the bottom. But versus solid shots, APCR, APDS, you name it, hell, even Heat FS, this part here, there is a lot of room where shells can disappear or deal not a lot of damage. But versus APHE, you die in one shot regardless. And the propellant charges in particular are very fragile. I had a case, maybe I'll show you the scene later. Long 88 came here, penetrated the turret, penetrated the spalling shield, detonated next to the gun breach, directly killing just the loader, the gunner and the commander, and then one fragment went down and ignited the ammunition. That happened multiple times, so that is not so nice. Armor isn't this tank's strength anymore, or this design line is not really that tanky anymore. So yeah, that is the T30 in a nutshell. Now let's talk about some other statistics: mobility, firepower, and then the ammunition. Let's begin here with the mobility, and don't wonder about the strange comparison versus the other stats. That will make sense later on. However, in this comparison we have the strongest engines, so we have a lot of grunt in the power department, but we need it because we are one of the heaviest tanks in this comparison. Just the Tiger 2 is heavier. Horsepower to ton ratio is just marginally better than the T29, but it actually, well, therefore turns significantly better. It's not as tired when you try to move it around. In fact, the ground pressure, it sometimes feels having better horsepower to ton ratio. However, it is severely limited in this department when you have good underground by the top speed limit of 35 kilometers per hour. Very often that is just simply nasty. The reverse speed, on the other hand, is not bad for a heavy tank at all, with 13 kilometers per hour, and we have neutral steering. So in this respect, it actually doesn't look all that bad, right? Now let's talk about the business end of the tank, the gun, the selling point, the 155mm T7 gun, the second joint biggest gun in this comparison. Just the FV4005 has a bigger gun, and we have 34 shells. That is enough overall. As I mentioned before, 20 rounds are enough. The reload, on the other hand, is just barely under 30 seconds. That is nasty, especially if you compare it with the Lorraine 155 MLE 50 that has nearly a third faster reload rate. So that is a significant difference. Again, will be apparent later on when we talk about other comparisons. Turret rotation speed, gun depression, gun elevation, elevation speed, they are fairly average to good. So this is not a drawback, but it's really that massive reload. Very often I had tanks in my sight, I couldn't do anything. I lost the reload battle. They just came around the corner, caught me in reload, and had easy time to aim and finish me off. So that is a massive drawback. You have the armor of a heavy tank at the end of the day. You are limited therefore a little bit with your mobility, and that means you cannot always get out of any situation. Now let's talk about the ammunition. Maybe that's special. Overall, we are looking at 4 different ammunition types. The first stock AP round is the M112B1 APBC round, and it's actually an APHE round, and it is confusing to look at this shell. First of all, low muzzle velocity of only 670 meters per second. That is really bad. It is quite an issue with leading and hitting targets, especially if they're moving, and especially at distance, this becomes very prominent. However, we have a massive 640 gram TNT filler, and that mostly guarantees you a one shot. However, I also had a case where I penned an RU-251 and the shell exploded inside of the tank, didn't kill him, and that got me killed later on. So that is a bit weird. The next thing here is only 197 millimeters of penetration. That is a severe drawback. That is not really convincing, and I expected more. But you know, it's just one of 4 shell types. The second stock shell type is the HE shell, in this case the M107. It is a bit faster with 717 meters per second muzzle velocity and delivers a whopping 6.86 kilogram of TNT filler. 54 millimeters of penetration at any angle, at any distance from the blast alone deal a lot of damage. You can splash a lot of tanks by shooting at their turret and then penetrating the rooftop, even the Tiger 2, Panther 2, you name them. And from the side there are a lot of tanks vulnerable to that kind of penetration as well, usually resulting in a safe one-shot. It is this shell that makes the tank more or less a derp shell and remembers me about the KV2 and the Lorraine 155. Funnily enough, the HE shell on the Lorraine 155 has the very same designation, just varies a little bit in the muzzle velocity, the TNT filler and the penetration, but not really by that much. Then the third shell type is here the T29E1 APCBC round, and we have the same muzzle velocity of 670 meters per second, the same TNT filler of nearly 640 grams, so astonishing as well. Same fuse delay, fuse sensitivities, same raw penetration value, roughly the same drop off, I think the very same drop off, and just marginally better penetration values on the stat card versus heavily angled armor. But honestly, you can also use the stock shell. I saw really no difference when trying and testing them out in battle and in the test drive, so I have no real idea what's going on. And that brings us now to the last shell type, which is the M110 smoke shell as a tier 3 upgrade. Now, please notice here that the smoke screen hold time is 30 seconds. That's exactly your ace crew reload speed by 0.1 second difference, and that makes it debatable, as well as this being your only source of smoke. So you have no ESS, you have no smoke grenades to pop in front of you, so that makes it all the trickier to deal with this tank's overall situation. So, in line with good tradition, the final Excel spreadsheet is the ammunition comparison, and this is in conjunction with all that I said before, now making it obvious that this tank has not really a lot of convincing arguments for it. While the APHE surely has a massive filler of nearly 640 grams of TNT, it is important to know that if you get hit by a 88mm APCBC round from the Tiger 2 or the Tiger 1 in the crew compartment, that's usually enough to one-shot you anyways, and they have not just better penetration and massively better muzzle velocity, but they also reload significantly quicker. Now let's talk about the AG. Maybe that's the secret selling point. The answer is no. Again, low muzzle velocity, but we have an impressive 54 millimeters of penetration. Surely that's better than all the 3 named heavy tanks, but if you compare it to all the other derp tanks such as the FE 4005, the Type 75, and as well in particular the Lorraine 155 MLE 50, you are similar or worse. And then you also have to take into account that you have, compared to the Type 75, not a huge array of rockets that deliver nearly the same amount of penetration power, but also the Lorraine 155 has literally nearly the same shell. It has literally the same name. It just suffers a little bit here with the muzzle velocity and also with the penetration by 1 millimeter. But you reload nearly 10 seconds faster, and since you are much more mobile with not the unimportant armor that's just slowing you down, you then can reposition after one shot, always avoiding the incoming fire, and that at a battle rating of 4.3, so that is 2.4 battle ratings lower. That is quite substantial. Then the tank has no AP, no APDS, no APCR, no APFSDS, and no HeatFS in any way, shape or form, and that just limits you quite a lot. And again, look at the mobility, look at the survivability, look at the reload and the ammunition choices and the scenes that you previously saw, and you can determine for yourself what is missing. Now, as far as I understood, there is a huge discussion about what the tank's ammunition should be. There are vague informations out there, even about penetration power for a solid round, solid AP of 260, 270 millimeters. That would be already a great advantage, or even a hash round, and at that caliber it would be very interesting to see how the tank would perform with this. But we don't have it, and this is the current state of the tank. And that now brings us to the final gameplay of today's tank review. You can see the tank review is already a bit shorter by default, and after rebalancing a Japanese M41 Walker Bulldog and showing him who's really America, I was actually pursuing a Panther, but before I could reload, before I could make it around the building, he was also destroyed. Then we see here this Tiger, and watch, I again use HE and splash on the turret, and that actually splashes down and ignites the ammunition. So maybe a little bit of exercise with how to use the HE is recommended, and I think this then is satisfying. I have to say it, when you kill somebody and you look at the hit cam, you look at the visual explosions, it is satisfying. It is truly satisfying, and that makes the tank interesting. But again, if you have already a KV2, if you already have the FV 4005, the Lorraine 155, any other derp tank, the Sturmpanzer 2, you name it, then you kind of know what I'm talking about. The AP-HE round, or the AP-BC round, the AP-CBC rounds, and the smoke shells, they're not really worth it. It's all about the HE round. But again, there are tanks that do that better, that do that quicker in various different variations. You can have the French reward tank, the Lorraine 155, which is super fun and fast and delivers a lot of giggles. And one more thing, despite the HE being so strong, this battle rating bracket here is where armor thickness in terms of raw steel and overall armor protection kind of seems to maximize. When we look at this battle rating from 5.7 to 7.7, especially with the Germans, it is not always that easy to deliver safely that one-shot knockout or kill with the HE. The same goes for arcade with a lot of the American tanks, and so this is probably a bad battle rating using the HE. But at higher battle ratings, just for the sake of it, you don't have a stabilizer and your reload rate is god awful and your armor then means nothing. Surely people will try it, people will splash Abrams, it will be hilarious, but effectively this is not a main grinder. The tank has a good civil line income, the ammunition is cheap, and so it fits perfectly in this already very, very strong American 6.7 tank lineup, and it is a nice variation to the T34 and the T29, but as a real serious grinder where you have good performance and can push in, knock out one tank, reload in time, knock out the next one, and just retreat a little bit around the corner to then reload for a few more seconds. This is not the tank's strength. You need to move with your team. You need to stay close to allies that then can save you, and you are a second line, not really sniper either. So you see where this is going. This tank definitely has its fans, and I absolutely see why. But if you look into War Thunder with a huge variety of vehicles and rewards and premiums that we already have in the game, this is just a tank that seems to miss something. Again, I think the hash round would be an interesting addition to this, or a solid armor piercing shot, and that would then make up here for the lousy penetration. Then I actually follow through on this unfortunate Panther. We splash on the turret front and splash down, ignite the ammunition. Not with every tank this is possible. For example, there are cases where a Tiger II just absorbs the shell to the turret front, but has actually taken out so much ammunition, a nice flying here into Stalinwood, comrade, that the frontal ammo racks on the side of the tank are actually empty, and this is what I usually recommend because it reduces the chance of getting one-shotted in the Tiger II by itself quite a bit. Now, I think this is a rather rare case, and there are also, what a shame. And there are also possibilities, especially from the side, to hit the armor beneath the tracks on the side of a Tiger II, for example, and then splash upwards in the said ammo rack. So here, yeah, we are spawn camping, that's what it is, but this is just the section where I just had the perfect result, and the way that German teams just get annihilated at this battle rating currently with the spam of this tank. So it's not really a problem to face one, but multiple of them, and also the combination of Hellcats. There are still a lot of T29s around. It's not really a nice environment for Germany, so this is how it ends up. If you don't meet the enemies on the battlefield, you just have to end the battle in their spawn. This is not how I like it to end, but just the way that it is. So here we finish off the Sulky with the 50 cals, and then please notice I hit the front plate of the chassis, and that was not able to be penetrated, but I splashed down, and then I only had to kill one of the crew members in the turret again with the 50 cal. So that was a nice double strike delivered to you by 50 cal. There you can see I already could have reloaded a normal armor piercing shell with the T29, and not even so far off with the reload with the T34, where then there was the second Japanese M41 Walker Bulldog. So we actually look where he is going and where he gets shot at, and then watch this shot. This is again one of those shots that I like to do from time to time whenever it is possible. I see the smoke, I estimate the range, I blind fire through the bush and hit the rooftop, splashing his tank completely. So that was a nice kill, and yeah, that was practically the end of the battle. So just cutting out here the last few seconds of the battle for the sake of it, let's have a quick look at the results. For 6 kills, 1 capture zone, we got nearly 71,000 Silverline. That is really great, and 8,630 modification research points. Not just only getting the survivor, but also the mission maker award, which is really great. So we were also second in team then. Good result. That was the best that I could do. Either I got caught off guard with the reloads, or just my team was just rushing the enemy team so hard that I didn't even get the chance to shoot them. That's the tank review by itself. If the tank is worth it for you, it's up to you. I provided you now with the objective data, with the facts, and with also my experience and my opinion towards it. I think the tank deserves a little bit of an ammunition buff in terms of getting new ammunition, either a solid shot or a hash round. That would be great. There is some vague, confusing information out there, but in the current state, the tank deserves a little bit more. So finally, that's it for me today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Let me know in the comment section what you think about your relatively free reward tank. If you played for it, what do you think about this? And give this video a like if it is, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the waves, in the skies, and on the battlefields of War Thunder.